I hate how overused this comparison is, but Chimp Caverns is the Dark Souls of Donkey Kong Country. I don't mean in terms of difficulty, though I suppose you could make that argument too, but instead in terms of world building. When the chosen undead arrives in Lordran, he's just in time to catch its last moments, but too late to do anything about it. Chimp Caverns was once the heart of the island, and the center of the Kremling's mining operation. It was their reason for returning, and the source of their wealth, but now it's little more than a hollow shell. I think now's as good a time as any to remind you all, and myself mostly, that this is a video game for children. This is part 48 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country. Upon closer examination, the overworld map for Chimp Caverns is actually really beautiful. There's a sense of scale, a sense of depth, and for lack of a better phrase, it feels a touch less video gamey than, say, Monkey Mines does. It's a huge, detailed cavern with rope bridges, ladders, and openings. An easily overlooked part of the map is the water at the bottom. Sure, it's hard to miss, but it tells us more about Chimp Caverns than almost anything else. It's very likely that Chimp Caverns is accessible by sea. Combined with the approaching Gangplank Galleon, that tells us that when the Kremlings returned to the island, this is where they landed. And we have no real way of knowing how long ago they returned. Look at the refineries and the damage done in Kremkrok, as well as how Chimp Caverns is now almost completely gutted. And it's not a stretch to say they've likely been here for a long time, with the Kongs none the wiser. One last thing I noticed is the cavern could extend quite a ways further than it initially appears, as there seems to be an opening that goes into darkness in the center of the picture. I really love the idea that this huge open space, mined bare of anything of value, could just be the tip of the iceberg, and the true extent of the damage is really only alluded to throughout the game. Also, does this sign say France or what? I think I mentioned in one of the Chimp Caverns level videos, but this world is hands down the most forgettable part of the game for me. And that's a damn shame, because these levels are all stellar. I couldn't fault a single one of them. And to take it a step further, this could even be the most fun area of the game. Tanked Up Trouble is the spiritual successor to Trick Track Trek, taking that level's central mechanic and working in the fuel system. So now, it's not enough just to stay on board, you've also got to keep the platform tanked up, or there'll be trouble. I'm not sorry. It's straightforward, but still a decent challenge and heaps of fun to play. The next level is a fairly basic premise. Manic Minces is a standard cave level with the titular Manic Minces being the main obstacle. The background looks cool and Rambi makes his third and final appearance. Misty Mine is a fairly simple level, but that isn't to say it's boring. Not at all. The central theme is the mist, which honestly didn't really provide much of a challenge. It looks cool, adds a lot to the atmosphere, and gives the level a unique visual identity, so it gets a pass. Misty Mine is a bit of a marathon, being one of the longest levels in the game. At least it feels that way. Another interesting thing about it is its abundance of the black drums. Virtually no organic enemy encounters occur in this level, but an infinite number of enemies spawn from all the different black drums littering the level from beginning to end. The next level, Loopy Lights, is quite similar to Misty Mine in a lot of ways. First, it shares the same tile set, the only instance in the game of 2 consecutive levels with the same visual theme, aside from the first 2, which feel way too different to count. Second, they're both 2 of the longest levels in the game, even going as far as to have similar structures. Third, their key ingredient is to mess with visibility. Only instead of mist, Loopy Lights has the lights in the mineshaft constantly go out. You can still kinda see without them. It isn't as bad as Blackout Basement, but you don't want to play too fast and loose here. It's also the first and only time we see the pink claptrap, outside of one bonus area earlier on. Platform Perils is the final normal level of the game, and what a way to wrap it up. The obvious focal point is the moving platforms. It's a concept that's easy to learn, hard to master, especially once you have to start thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead. That said, like every other level in Chimp Caverns, or hell, the entire game, it's insanely fun, and I love it to bits. Also, this is the only appearance of the Great Crusher, and he's awesome. Now, as good as these levels are, a huge reason for why they aren't particularly memorable boils down to the lack of any new or distinguishing visual themes. Every level uses a tile set that has already been seen many times before. Every other world introduces at least one new theme, but not Chimp Caverns. Could be a lack of ideas, a lack of space on the cartridge for the assets, or it could be a deliberate stylistic choice, the absence of new ideas reflecting the hollow nature of the world itself. The trail of bananas leads from Kremkrok Industries, over another broken conveyor belt system, terminating inside a huge cavern, somewhere deep in the heart of the island. Originally, the system in place in Tanked Up Trouble would have shuttled ore from the mines in Chimp Caverns and up to the refinery in Blackout Basement. But like many other structures over the island, it's either been abandoned, dismantled, or fallen into a state of disrepair. Whatever the case, it doesn't serve that purpose anymore. Making their way into the mines, the Kongs find themselves in a peculiar place. It looks just like the other limestone caves that litter the island, but for some reason, this one's green. It gets weirder too. There's a bunch of mining machinery that seems to have been left on, with only 4 Kremlings in the entire area. It's entirely possible that somewhere in the cavern, the Kremlings mined under the lake in Kremkrok Industries, Poison Pond, and the water drained through this cave system. The pollution stained the cave walls snot green, and the toxicity of the water and fumes, combined with the clear lack of proper ventilation, caused the Kremling workers to mass evacuate. It could have even been the event that instigated the abandonment of Chimp Caverns entirely. This would also explain how the lake that became Poison Pond got so low. For some reason, Rambi has found his way here too, and for one last time, he teams up with the Kongs to find their way out. Donkey and Diddy descend further into the mines, a long arduous trek that takes them deeper and deeper through the maze-like shafts. One area is so poorly ventilated that, even long after it's been abandoned, it's still full of haze. Expresso is here too, for some reason. Another section of the mine has faulty lights. This could be something that happened long after it was abandoned, or it could be the reason it was abandoned. I don't think we should rule out the idea that the Kremlings labored under these conditions either. The final area, Platform Perils, mirrors the entrance, though instead of leading to the refinery, this one leads to the exit, where the Kremlings first landed on the Gangplank Galleon. Like Tanked Up Trouble, Platform Perils is in a terrible state, quite possibly pulled apart and repurposed in other areas of the island, like Winky's Walkway. Even so, the strongest soldiers in the Kremling army stand guard, ready to put up one last fight to stop the Kongs from reaching their leader. But of course, Donkey and Diddy prevail, going on to face and defeat the final of K-Rool's lieutenants, Master Neki Sr. It's here that it becomes apparent why Chimp Caverns was the final stop on the trail. The Kremlings, not particularly liking the taste of bananas, were planning on using this giant empty space to dump DK's horde. Where else are you gonna do it? I mean, that's all speculation, but it checks out. I view Chimp Caverns less as the climactic area and more as a sort of epilogue. I mean, in terms of gameplay, it absolutely is climactic, and on that front, the game goes out with a bang. But from a narrative standpoint, it feels like a quiet, somber walk through a dead world, one that emphasizes the stakes, a visual representation of how their home could look if the Kongs aren't successful. It drives home the point that it isn't enough to just get their bananas back. They need to make sure something like this can never ever happen again. Chimp Caverns is a special place in the game, but I think I've said all I care to say on it, so let's close the book on this strange, beautiful, and often overlooked part of DKC history. I've had fun, I hope you did too, and now it's time to finally end the journey once and for all. As always, I'm extremely grateful for all of you for watching my weird little series. Thanks for sticking with me, and thanks for being here as we finally wrap it up, almost a year after it started.